Hey guys, Cameron, Audi 3.0 owners, and I am bringing you the first video of an entire video series dedicated to your 3-liter supercharged engine PCV system. Specifically, this is the start of our journey in retrofitting and relocating the 3-liter supercharged engine PCV system so that we make it, once we're all said and done, a system that you can service if need be in less than 10 minutes without having to take your supercharger off. But Cameron, didn't the Audi engineers make a really reliable and well thought out PCV system for this engine? Hey, I'm glad you asked that question. The answer to that is not really. For an OEM car that's not getting it modified, yeah, it's adequate. It's still a point of failure though, even on completely stock cars. Yes, some will last into high mileage, but it's a common point of failure on it. So that's what this video is gonna talk about. We're gonna talk about the way our OEM PCV units fail, why it's a big hazard to this car, and kind of a background on what we're gonna do going forward. So before I get started, please take a second, like and subscribe to the channel, especially if you want to stay up to date on this. If you haven't already followed us on Instagram, go over there because we're going to post a lot of updates for stuff there, especially as parts come in. And yeah, if you have any questions about this, leave them in the comments below and I'll try and get to them as soon as possible. But let's get into this. All right, let's talk about the OEM PCV system. Let's talk about why it fails, what happens when it fails, and we'll talk about the cost and the process of replacing it as it sits right now. The number one reason that these start to fail is basically because we start modifying our cars. We start amping up the boost, we start increasing power, which is creating more pressure on the OEM PCV. The OEM PCV is a single unit that's located under your supercharger in the valley of the engine underneath the coolant crossover pipe. It connects from your thermostat. That crossover pipe connects to your thermostat, runs over the top of the PCV, and connects to your heater core tubes in the back. It's located under that. The whole thing is plastic, except for I'm sure some internal parts or some metal in there, but it's basically a plastic housing and it's water cooled from your engine coolant. When the PCV ultimately fails, and they fail on stock cars, over time they will start to break down and they will fail on stock cars as well. And so what happens is when they start to break down, the first thing that happens is it doesn't process the actual oil vapors correctly. There's more pressure and it starts to suck up oil vapor into your supercharger because the return line, this is your return line from the OEM PCV. It sits on top of the PCV and it connects here into the top of your the bottom of your supercharger. You can see these little O-rings, it just pops right in there. It's really, really super simple. It pulls that oil vapor up there, and so then that oil vapor, that oil gets pulled in through your supercharger and goes in and gets processed, and you start burning oil. And what a symptom will be if your PCV fails is you'll start burning probably about a liter of oil every 1,000 to 2,000 miles. It's a super common symptom, okay? It will trigger a code, I think it's P025E code, but it won't trigger a check engine light typically. You have to have something to scan and look for that code if you think that you might have a PCV failure. The number 2 symptom of a PCV failure, and this is the one that you guys really need to be worried about. If it breaks in a certain way, the coolant that runs through the PCV will mix with your engine oil, and that is bad news, right? You don't want engine oil mixing with your coolant. It will destroy your engine if left unchecked. The only way that you kind of figure this out is that you'll have phantom coolant loss. You'll start to see that your coolant will go down in your reservoir, but you won't find any leaks anywhere. Typically doesn't trigger an EPC light and misfires like it does when you start to leak coolant from your intercooler cores in your supercharger into the intake manifold. So it's a really tricky situation there that you just start losing coolant and don't know where it is, and you got to check for that, all right? And you check for that by checking your oil, see if it's that chocolate milk substance, okay? So what does it cost and what does it take to replace your OEM PCV? You can go on FCP Euro and get an updated, most current revision PCV from them, and I think those are in the, like maybe $300 range if I remember when I did it. The last time I did it was about a year ago. I've got a PCV tips and tricks video and you can check that out. I should have probably a link to that in the description. Otherwise, you can search for my channel. FCP Euro has an amazing DIY step-by-step process. If you use that video along with my tips and tricks video, you should be able to replace the PCV on your own at home if you got the right tools. It's not terribly difficult, but all said and done, if you're gonna replace an OEM PCV, when you get it from FCP Euro and you get all, because there's a lot of hidden costs in this job, are supercharger, like intake manifold gaskets, gaskets for other parts in your PCV. There's a lot of different things, and typically when you open up supercharger, there's other stuff that you might want to address while it's all taken apart. So usually just to do a PCV change, you're looking at maybe $400 to $450 in parts, and whatever labor it takes you to do it yourself. If you take it to an indie shop, you're looking at maybe about $1,000 job, including parts and labor. If you take it to the dealership, I think it's anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 I've even seen. Someone commented on a post that said they got ran for $2,000 doing a PCV job. That's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So we in the 3.0T community, I've heard people talk about all the time, I wish we could do a relocation kit for the 3-liter turbo. And that's what the start of this video series is. This is the first video in a series of learning how to retrofit and relocate your 3-liter supercharged PCV system. So let's talk about that now. All right, unfortunately, I don't have one of my old worn out PCVs from this engine to show you guys, but the whole gist of this is that everything is located underneath the supercharger, as we've discussed already. It's a single piece system. What we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be getting rid of that PCV that's underneath the supercharger. We're gonna be getting rid of these crappy spider hoses that break and are a nightmare to get off the valve covers because of the way they're designed to clip on here. We're basically deleting the entire OEM PCV system, and then we're gonna be replacing it with parts from a 3.2 liter VR6 engine that you find in the 2005, 2006 Audi A3s and A6s. This whole thing was discovered that you can do this by a guy named Oleg, and he runs Svarog Performance. I think he's somewhere up in the Northeast on the East Coast. It's Svarog, S-V-A-R-O-G. Think he's Russian, sounds like Russian. Mad scientist when it comes to the 3-liter engine. He's a guy that put a giant ass turbo on the back of his 3-liter supercharged engine and kept the supercharger on it. He's just a genius, so the Audi wizard, whatever you want to call him. He was the one that pioneered this. I got a link to his video in the description. Make sure you check it out. It's not a comprehensive, easy to follow DIY, but it gives you the overall gist of what he did. So he did that, and some other people took notice of that. I went to a show in Raleigh about 4 weeks ago maybe, and met a guy there named Christopher May, he's the vice president of Audi Carolinas, Audi Club Carolinas chapter. Super nice guy, but I came across his B8 S4 at the show, and as I was walking up to it, looking at all his engine mods, I saw a hockey puck style PCV sitting like right here. I immediately knew what it was, and I grabbed him. I was like, hey, I need to talk to you, because I know what you've done. I want you to explain everything you've done. And of course he referenced Oleg's video, and he actually did an interview with me for my Eurofest coverage video, which you can find that. It's on my finest video, probably throw a link into it or into the description just so you guys can go find the interview, and he explains in detail what he did. Basically what we're doing is we're gonna be taking the coolant flange and the oil separator from a 3.2 liter VR6 engine, which that fits perfectly into our engines in the Valley, okay? All that's part of is the thing to run the coolant through it and an oil separator. An oil separator is a fancy term for OEM catch can. That's all it is. It's a plastic piece, it bolts to the metal piece. The good thing about this, it comes with a metal gasket so it will never leak. The metal should never crack under whatever circumstances you can throw at it for sure. So you won't have to deal with the potential of mixing oil with your coolant ever again. You shouldn't ever have to go in there and service it unless somehow you have a failure of that oil separator, which you can replace that plastic oil separator if you want to with a knockoff aftermarket version. They run about 60 bucks. So if you get all this stuff and you're like, you know what, I got to use one, I want to put a new one of those on there, go for it. Preventative maintenance, whatever you want to do. So we're going to put that in there. Then we're going to get the 3.2 liter VR6 spider hose that comes off of that. We're going to modify it a little bit to be able to run a steel braided fuel hose off of that. And when I say fuel hose, don't get confused that we're doing anything with fueling. We're just using fuel hose for this. We're gonna run that off to go to one of those hockey puck style PCVs. And we're gonna probably have it kind of hanging out over here for now. We'll attach it somewhere to where we can like move it around so we can get to the oil filter housing. But we're gonna run a line to that. We're going to modify that hockey puck so that it will be able to connect to our custom lines. That has an end line and an out line, and that'll be sitting there. From there, it's up to you. You can either just run the return line back, and we'll talk about the return line in a second, and be done with it and just have an externally serviceable PCV system, or you can do what I'm gonna do, invest in a catch can system, and you can run a line off that hockey puck PCV to a catch can to catch even more oil vapors before the return line goes back to your supercharger. Let's talk about the return, what's important about it, and let's understand what we're doing here. Remember, we talked about your OEM return line being underneath the supercharger, right? Comes in underneath. That's why if you've ever opened up your supercharger, you can see like black stuff in there. That's oil vapor coming up, especially if you've had a failed PCV. It's putting a lot more oil vapor in there. And if you've ever seen your intercooler cords and you pull them out, you'll see how black they are. That's from oil vapor getting pulled through, especially with a failed one. I believe that the more often you've had a failed PCV and you're pulling those oil vapors through and they're getting lodged into your intercooler cores, that's causing them to fail as well. Okay, it's another common point of failure. So this should all increase the health of your supercharger when we do this. But remember, we can't reuse that OEM port underneath the supercharger. So what do? Traditionally, people have either, well, actually what they're doing when they're doing this, the only people that have done it, they've had to weld that port underneath shut, because if you just leave it open, it's a boost leak. Don't want that to happen. But you have to be really careful because these are aluminum. Welding aluminum is notoriously tricky. And if you screw it up and you get too much heat or something, you could potentially warp the body of the supercharger and then it's useless. You can't use it anymore, right? So you have to really know what you're doing or take it to someone who knows what they're doing. That's an added cost of doing this job, right? On top of that, you have to create a new return line. That new return line needs to go in somewhere on the supercharger. So where do you put it? If that hockey puck sits back there and you maybe run a catch can over here, you have to run a line back. You have to put that return line somewhere behind the throttle body, but before the compressor. So what the people that have done it before us have done is underneath all this, right on the back of, I should have maybe a picture somewhere here to kind of show what Chris did on his, but they had to drill and tap in an AN fitting and weld it on there. And once again, I'm not comfortable doing that myself, so I would be taking it to have someone weld in that plug on the bottom and then drill that and weld in an AN fitting so that I can run this. It shouldn't be terribly expensive to do that, but it is an added expense for most people who don't have the ability to weld at home especially. And it's maybe a little disconcerting. The other negative part about it is you're permanently altering your supercharger for this setup. So if you ever needed to change your supercharger, your next one that came, you'd have to do the same thing. You'd have to spend the money to have it done again on that one. If you ever wanted to sell your supercharger to someone, they'd have to have this system ready to go for that. If you, I don't know, wanted to put it back to stock, you'd have to swap supercharger bodies. That's a pain in the butt, right? I reached out to my really good friend, Jose Mercado, who is the owner of Merc Racing. He is a fab guy. He loves to invest in the 3.0T community. And I said, Jose, I got an idea and I need to talk to you. And he's like, hit me with it. So we got into a conversation a few nights ago about this and he got really excited. The first conversation we had, we were talking about that return port. And at first we were like, hey, do we have room under there to create something to still optimize that OEM return port to be able to just bring a line under there? And the answer is pretty much no. There's not enough room once we put this new PCV in there because it's gonna sit a little bit higher. But he said, you know what? Let's not run the risk of damaging superchargers by welding that port shut. I'm gonna come up and CNC a plug that may utilize the OEM O-ring from your stack. And that way I can make that. It might cost 10, 15 bucks, but you're basically taking that O-ring from the OEM stack, putting it on Merc Racing's plug and just popping it into the bottom of the supercharger and you don't have to weld it. That greatly reduces the risk of damaging your supercharger, greatly reduces the cost of doing that part of the modification, stops it from being a permanent modification as well. So it's completely reversible now. That's amazing. So left the conversation at that until last night. Last night I started thinking about some stuff and once again I was like, I'm gonna call Jose. Called Jose, got on the phone, it was him and his son. They were tinkering on some stuff and I said, hey, gotta talk to you about some things. And we ended up having a 2-hour conversation about this job. And it dived and delved into the theme of how do we make this job reliable, affordable, and 100% DIY at a garage that you can do without having to have someone modify your supercharger permanently. And we came up with some ideas. I'm not gonna talk about what we came up with, but it's so simple, it's genius. But we think we have it set up to where Merc Racing is gonna have a kit that you can buy for maybe in the $50 range that will allow you to have a bolt-on return ability so that you don't have to permanently modify that part of the supercharger, as well as that plug. Really excited about that. He's gonna start working on those soon, and that's just amazing, because then everything is reversible, everything is safe, everything is DIY. We talked about some other things too that are gonna be really exciting. I can't wait to bring these ideas. I wanna tell you about everything we talked about right now, but I can't, just in case it doesn't work out. And plus, I want him to be able to do this and not have to worry about people stealing his ideas, because everybody likes to steal stuff from Jose when he develops really awesome, innovative things. So shout out to Merc Racing. You guys are the best. I love you guys. Thank you for helping me and investing in this project with me. Okay, now let's talk about the really exciting part about this, the part that I'm like the most proud of about this entire project that's coming up. All the parts that you're gonna need to do this retrofit and relocation, all said and done, if you're gonna include a catch can, and keep in mind, prices here are gonna vary depending on where you source your parts and what kind of parts you get. I attacked this project with the idea of I'm gonna try and do it as cheap as possible for the budget DIYer. I'm gonna use off-brand stuff. I'm gonna be using used parts. I'm gonna be just trying to do universal things. And talking with Chris May, the guy that I saw had this done, he's like, yeah, man, I use knockoff Chinese parts and they've been working great. So all said and done, all the parts included, this relocation DIY is gonna run you anywhere from $375 to maybe $550. Depending on what you use. And yes, that's an investment, right? But remember, if you just do an OEM PCV change, you're already there. You're already at like $400 to $500 there. Especially if you're having a shop do it, you're now at like $1,000 to $1,500 potentially. And if that shit breaks again, you have to go spend that money again. With this, you're investing maybe $400 to $500, maybe a little bit more. And then after that, you don't have to reinvest that anymore. It's done. If that hockey puck PCV has a failure, that serviceable piece, you buy a replacement one for 20 bucks, the knockoff version, and you just replace the internals and you're done, and that's it. It takes 10 minutes. So you're investing in your car for a more reliable and more serviceable thing, and that's amazing. But I have to do the investment first to get this done so I can bring the DIY to you. And my money for car stuff comes directly just from the YouTube channel. And yeah, I make a little bit of money from ads, but not a ton. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna post a feeler on the Facebook groups. I'm gonna put something on Instagram. Do you guys really want me to do this? Is this something you really want? Because if you really want it, I will invest in it. It'll take me a couple months to get everything together. Eventually get on it. Put it out there overwhelmingly between the C7 crowd and the B8S4 crowd. You guys are overwhelmingly, yes, please do this. We want to see this, we want to do this. So I was like, all right, it's happening. After that, I got a message from one of our followers, one of our subscribers. I'm not gonna put his name out there because I don't want to put business out there like that, but I'm gonna tell you what he did. He messaged me and said, hey, what's your PayPal? I'd like to send you some money to contribute towards this to make it happen. And I was like, dude, that is so awesome. Yeah, that'd be amazing. And so I told him, and I was expecting, maybe like 20, 40 bucks. I'm like, yeah, right. This man sent me $100, y'all, $100. That might not sound like a lot to a lot of people, but for a person who is doing this all kind of like on his own and trying to put these parts together off of a very simple YouTube income, so to speak, that's huge. You know who you are if you're watching this video. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was huge inspiration to get this going. I immediately turned around and started buying parts for this job. I was like, okay, this project is happening. Then I started talking to some people and someone said, hey, make an Amazon wish list. Like all the fittings you need, all the hoses you need, like any part that you can get off of Amazon, make an Amazon wish list, put all the parts on there and just throw it out there and say, hey, you guys want to help make this project happen faster, or you want to contribute to this? Here's this wish list, I need these parts. I was like, I've never done that, whatever. I'll give it a shot. And if someone just even buys one fitting, that's one more part towards this project that helps me get it done faster. So I created the wish list. There was about a total of $350 worth of parts. It's basically every other part that I need except for three things that weren't on Amazon. And I posted it. Guys, within an hour, you guys killed that list. That list was bought and paid for, every single part, bought and paid for, and on their way to my house because of you guys. I am absolutely floored. I'm absolutely stunned. I cannot believe it. I am so incredibly humbled and grateful that you guys are that excited about this and trust me to get this done. Guys, thank you so much. That's a huge just lift in spirits. And now this project is 100% a go. We are doing this. We're going full hard at it. We're going to get this done. I'm gonna bring this video to you. Even after that, people were messaging me, hey, there's nothing on the list. Is there anything else you need? And then, yeah, there was a few other parts. Someone else bought the rest of the stuff I needed. This video is 100% funded and sponsored by the community, and I cannot thank you guys enough. Seriously, it's amazing. You know, I'm a relatively small YouTube channel. I have 5,600 subscribers, which for me, I'm so stoked on because I feel like I'm a niche, you know, influencer, if you want to call it that. I cater to a very small sector of Volkswagen Audi cars, well, just Audi cars. I'm not like, you know, Eli Rubin, who runs Ignition Tube. He's got 60-something thousand followers, you know? He's got amazing videos, high quality videos, and brings a lot of information to you guys. You know, I don't have that kind of following, but for whatever reason, you guys are investing in me to do this, and I want to let you guys know that it's not lost on me how much that really means to me. So yeah, thank you. Other cool part. One of the parts on there was that universal catch can that I wanted to put on this, and it was like a $35 catch can, you know, $40 catch can. Apparently, when this project got around to integrated engineering. A couple nights ago, one of the reps at Integrated Engineering messaged me on Facebook, and he said, hey, we would like to donate one of our recirculating catch cans for this project so that you don't have to use that universal one. We think you'll be much happier with our version of it. And I was like, yeah, I think I would too. So Integrated Engineering, if any of you guys are watching this, thank you guys. It's a huge thing to see a company like you guys investing in this. So between the community, between Merc Racing, between Integrated Engineering, we are gonna be bringing you this 3.0T PCV replacement DIY video relatively soon, probably within the next couple months, because I need to let Merc Racing fab up these things. Going back to that, every single one of you who donated and contributed anything to this video, at the very least, I'm going to make sure that each of you get one of those Merc Racing plugs for the bottom return line. I'm going to buy those myself and ship them all to you. I'll be reaching out to all of you. I've got all your names. I'll be reaching out to you either on Facebook or Instagram to get your shipping address and everything like that. I'm gonna try and do something more beyond that for you guys if I can, but at the very least, I'm getting you those plugs so that you guys don't have to buy those. Just wanted to say, you know, that's a small token of my appreciation towards you guys making this video happen. So anyways, this is the first video in our 3.0T PCV relocation video. I'm gonna make a playlist on the YouTube channel that all these are gonna be uploaded to. So when you wanna go find this, you just have to go to my playlists and you find, you know, PCV playlist, whatever I'm gonna call it, and all these will be on there. Please guys, like and subscribe if you like this and you're excited about this project and you want to see more from it. If you have questions and comments about this, leave them in the comments below. I'm going to be tight-lipped on a few things, especially the stuff that Jose at Merc Racing is developing until we get it out there and we can bring it to you guys. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I forgot about this. I don't know. Today, almost all the parts from the Amazon wishlist are arriving today. Like I got a notification that I have like 8 packages coming. So expect another video here in the very near future just showing all the parts that I've gotten. I'm hoping to be able to like lay it out on my table and actually show the whole system so it kind of makes sense visually. That'll be a video. There'll be a video on the Integrated Engineering catch can. Then after that, I'm gonna have a video showing how to prep everything, how to put all the lines together, get everything ready to actually go into the car. And then the last video will be putting the stuff on there. So stick with me on this one, guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you on the next video soon. Hit the microphone. See you on the next video soon.